This will be a lot of the way to yes, it
went online, so I was supposed to pass them that. She said, I see you've got two businesses, she said. Oh yeah, pass them round, Karen, to the others. I'll put some sustenance in for you.
Thank you. I'll just get my...
All right. Yeah. All right.
But, yeah, and she said, she said, well, how much do you get?
Yeah, we're going to go. Right. Okay.
Oh, yeah, ladies.
Good evening.
Good evening.
8:30. Sandwich Tollbridge Fund Finance Committee. Can I first of all ask, any apologies for not attending?
No apologies have been received.
And in terms of membership tonight, we've got Councillor Tomlins is substituting for Councillor Franklin. Okay. Any declarations of interest on items that are to be discussed during tonight's agenda from anybody?
No.
Okay. Then we, agenda item number 3, we have minutes of 2 previous finance committee meetings. So we have the minutes from the committee meeting held on the 18th of September and also from the meeting held on the 22nd of October. Now, can I just point out, it was my error, on the 18th of September minutes, we did discuss them at the last meeting. There were no comments raised, but I failed to take a vote on those, so that's why they're included tonight. And then we have got the minutes from the last meeting to take a vote on as well.
I'd like to propose the minutes from the 18th of September be accepted as a true record.
And would like to second those minutes from September? Councillor Wiles, and vote on those, those that were present. 2 abstentions. Councillor Tomlins and Councillor Green. Okay. Moving on to the minutes for the 22nd of October, would anybody like to propose those unless anybody has comments?
I wasn't there, so I'm going to defer, sorry.
I'm happy to propose them myself because I was there, so I was chairing. Would you like to second them? Councillor Pennington, and can take a vote on those. We have 3 abstentions. Councillor Green, Councillor Tomkins, 4, and Councillor Carter and Councillor Anderson. Okay. Moving on to the action log, we had one outstanding action, which was F0724-6. This was for Councillor Green to produce a table formatted for the committee that captures all the responsibilities of the committee. I believe that that's now been done.
It has been done.
Yep. So we can get that circulated ahead of the next meeting, and that will close that action. Thank you, Councillor Green, for doing that. Item 4, public participation. Unless I'm mistaken, there's nobody behind us waiting to talk, so if that's still the case, then we can move on to item 5, and that's taking receipt of payment schedules and the finances. If we could separate these out and first take the 3 payment schedules for approval. These are attachments 2A, 2B and 2C. Do we have any comments on these at all? Would anyone like to propose them?
I would like to propose 2A, 2B and 2C.
Councillor Carton, seconded by Councillor Wiles. And if you'd like to vote on these, we're unanimous on those. Okay. Then we're asked to receive and approve the Sandwich Tollbridge Fund payment schedules for the end of October and mid-November 2024. The Sandwich Tollbridge Fund Guildhall payment schedules for the end of October and mid-November 2024. And the Museum and Archives payment schedule for the end of October and mid-November 2024. If there are any comments, we'll take those now. If not, we can move to proposing and seconding. No comments, thank you.
I'm happy to propose those items.
The seconder, Councillor Wiles again, and vote on those. Unanimous, thank you. The next report we're asked to receive and approve is the Sandwich Tollbridge Fund cash book as of the 30th of September 2024. That's attachment 2D. Any comments or questions on these? No, thank you. Would you like to have to propose them?
I'm happy to propose that.
Councillor Carter, seconds. Go on, Councillor Pennington. I can see you're keen to second them. You have to second them?
Okay.
And the vote? All approved. Thank you very much. Then we have the next set of the free budget variance reports. These are attachments 2E to 2G. We were asked to receive and approve the STBF budget variance report to the end of September, the STBF Guildhall budget variance report for the end of September, and the STBF Museum budget variance report for the end of September 2024. Any comments? No? Somebody like to propose these? Councillor Carter's
I'm
already
happy to
and
propose.
Councillor Breen is seconding, and we're voting unanimously. Yes, thank you very much. And the final attachment, 2K, is the Quilter Achievement Report for October 2024, which we are asked to receive. And
Sorry, have you done the bank reconciliations?
did I?
No, I don't think you did actually. No, that's correct.
Previous to that?
2J.
2J. Well spotted, thank you. There's so many of them, I've got so overly keen and miss them out. So we then have 3 bank reconciliations to receive and approve. So the first is the bank reconciliation for Sandwich Tollbridge Fund as of the 30th of September 2024. The second is to receive and approve the bank reconciliation for Sandwich Tollbridge Fund Guildhall as of the 30th of September 2024. And finally, to receive and approve the bank reconciliation for Sandwich Tollbridge Fund Museum as of 30th September 2024, and that's 2H to 2J as attachments. Happy to propose those.
I'm
Councillor
happy to
Capital,
propose those if
Yeah.
it's not too much for me to keep
and Councillor
proposing.
Wines is seconding, and we approve those. Thank you, Karen, for pointing those out. And finally, to receive the Quilter Achievement reports for October 2024. Do we have any comments on the reports? Councillor Green.
If you look at page 10 of the valuation, you'll see that Quilter Cheviot have invested some £55,000 in the Quilter Cheviot Investments Funds Diversified. Personally, I think they have a conflict of interest in investing in one of their own funds. And whilst it might be good, I think for transparency's sake and for independence sake, we should ask them not to invest in their own funds.
Do you have any other comments regards that particular comment?
Good point. Yeah, valid comment.
I would support that strongly.
Yeah.
And also, there has been stuff in the press about good Cheviot funds.
Compensation.
Well, also that they're not doing very well. So,
Is that the
I
share
do
price?
wonder what they're doing.
Is that the share price, 1.01?
Price is, yes.
That's
£1
right, that's
and
correct, yeah.
1 penny, yes. Or 2 pennies, actually. Sorry, two things I would say there. There's one action, Karen, that is to write on the basis of asking them not to invest in their own funds. But secondly, I think there's an outstanding action from when we met with them in the pre-meeting, where they were going to share information with STBF regards the fund, the opportunity to move the fund to a charity-based fund that they offer, and that's now some 3 months ago, possibly.
That's true, that's correct.
So could that be followed up in terms of what they're proposing for us to consider?
We have received
Okay,
a proposal from them.
so can that come to the next STBF?
Yes, I think that's the plan.
Good.
We have a collection of documents from them, so I think that's what Jill said,
Yes.
that we'd have to wait until December
Yes.
at the full trustee
Yeah,
meeting.
of course, it's a bit, when it's a quarterly meeting, so that might be the time lag behind that, and that would be completely explainable. So could we make sure that that does come, or if not, we'll be waiting another 3 months to get that. Councillor Miles.
Is there any way within this document of identifying the precise fee that we are paying in total, either quarterly or annually, for management of the fund?
I think, to answer that, I don't know, the RFO knows, but they do send through, I think on a quarterly basis, a summary of their accounts and their fees. I don't know if any of you have seen it, so when we get this Quilter Cheviot report, it has additional, the fees to date in that report, so, and it's usually like a thicker report which has got a summary of their fees. I don't know if you've seen that previously, but that does come through.
So did I ask another action, Karen, to take that back to see when the next one is due, and if it's imminent in the next month, then that's fine. If we have received it recently, I'm sure we've had it to STBF itself,
Yeah.
but just to check the status so we can answer the question that Councillor Miles has raised. Okay. Thank you.
So with those amendments, I'll be happy to
Yep.
propose
Receiving
acceptance
it, yep.
of
Councillor
5K
Parkin,
or 2K.
second. Councillor Pennington, and accepting the reports. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Now this could get a bit tricky without the town clerk here. So item 6, an update from the town clerk on the hub and extending of its use for pop-up events. Karen, are you able to talk to these at all? If not, we'll talk amongst ourselves about them, I suppose, because a report is a report. I can give some information on this, but questions I might not be able to answer. So,
Sorry,
I
I
think-
can't. It's
I
the
think
way
I'd
my-
like to propose that the chairman gives an update.
I'd like to.
You have the knowledge?
Well, a subset of the full knowledge. So, the situation is that 3 separate businesses have applied to use the hub to run pop-up events on a regular basis, and my understanding is that means the hub will be used and will be let out for pop-up events 7 days a week, not with all 3 occupying on all 7 days, but between the 3 businesses there will be 1 or 2 of them every day. So what that gives is a good stream of income to the STBF, as opposed to it being used ad hoc. So we had gone to a position where the Thursday market certainly was using it as an overflow on occasions and on an ad hoc basis, but we now actually have, if the business is successful, we have a, for all intents and purposes, permanent occupancy of it. Which I suppose then triggers for me a question back to Karen, is how we featured this within the STBF finances. We can leave that hanging there till we get to the finances, because I'm not certain I saw
Do you
11,000.
mean the draft budget?
Yeah,
Put
yeah,
1200.
It is in the draft budget.
11,700.
12,000.
I think I put 11,000 in.
Okay, for the half.
For the half.
Okay,
But
that's good.
I actually called it indoor market, so you
Ah,
might,
right,
you might
okay,
not
maybe I was
recognise
being,
it.
yeah, okay, I needed to be spoon-fed, sorry about that. Okay, so that's what I know. We're being asked to receive and note the report, but have we got any questions? Any further questions?
So some of this will be what, 9 till 5, 5 days a week or 7?
I think if you went onto Facebook, you might find the hours from someone that's already advertising. So Alamo's is one of them. There is also a nail bar. Apologies, I don't know their name. And there is another antique
Vintage fashion.
vintage clothing as well.
So the ones on a Thursday will be an extension of the forecourt market.
No, so for all intents and purposes, it'll be open, it'll be advertised, there'll be A-boards outside, but they are running a 7-day operation between the 3 of them.
And the income comes here,
To STBF. Yes, yeah. Councillor
It's
Thomas.
really positive. It's
Yeah.
the fact that I wonder how it would be received by other traders in the town in terms of why it was offered to those three and to others. It might need
Now
to
we
be.
get into a lower level of detail that I personally can't answer, but these will have been businesses, I understand, that approached the council about using the space.
And it has a temporary trial base for it, if that was understood it, or more permanent.
So it's pop-up events, so it is within that, it's not like a business
But it'd be
occupying,
reviewed
yes.
after a
Yeah,
certain
I
period.
can't answer,
I
sorry.
think those things are
Yeah.
kind of probably need to be considered, I would think.
First come, first served.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask, are they obviously 7 days a week, we have to staff on Saturday and Sunday? Yeah, so are you counting towards the staff cost from that, opening the guild hall, heating, all the uses, because Saturday, Sunday, if it's not occupied, obviously no staff had to be.
Yeah.
Is there any on
On
costs
cost on top of that.
to be taken from this?
I'm not going to try and guess
Yeah.
that detail, because
Yeah.
the one solution could be that they've got access themselves just to the hub area.
Okay.
I know their stores are set up,
Yeah.
so that it's not as if they're packing away and leaving every night and taking all the stuff out of the building. They are leaving stuff in there, I believe. But I think these sort of questions need to be collated and asked for the town clerk to answer.
Yeah, because obviously they should use the hub. They obviously would use facility, guild halls, their toilets, or something like
Yeah,
that.
It would strengthen the argument for reopening these toilets.
It might do. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I think Councillor Blackley will go.
Sorry,
Thank you.
peripherals.
It's the, you may have answered the question, but I think also Councillor Wells asked it. Are they going to be open in the evening, or is this purely that they may have some things left? Again, Karen, if you could, are you going to sort of take this up with Jill?
I will speak to Jill
Yeah.
and the property manager.
If you could let me know, because
Yeah.
we've got a particular, I've got a particular interest with things like the tourism forum, which we find very useful to use the hub, and that may be a problem.
Yes, I think the hub may now be out of bounds, because I did ask personally about it for the antiques market, and I've been told it won't be available.
Okay, it'd be useful to clarify.
Yes. So I'm trying to see that. I believe it's a daytime activity, but if there's,
Well, it's a stock in there
Yeah.
overnight, yeah.
Because my question was similar, because the hub has actually been a useful space for meetings. Particularly of this council, and particularly of Heritage and Townscape, where I never asked, but we always used to meet in there. And I presumed it was because we now, as Heritage and Townscape, have a responsibility under that committee for disability issues. I presumed that was why we were meeting there. And of course that responsibility continues. So I think it would be disappointing if now, as a council, we're losing that facility to meet.
you might recall it.
The costs of losing that facility are really quite high.
So it was my proposal that we did hold it there for the Heritage and Townscape, particularly on that specific point. What I would suggest is that what we should do, we should receive and note the report, and we should ask it to take into the next STBF for answers to those questions and the allowance of members to follow up with further questions. Would that be acceptable?
I think that is the best option, because we don't have all the information, none of us in this room can answer the questions that are being asked.
It's also worth noting that it's been used for the police and councillor drop-in
Yes,
section, and
yes.
we need to think of an alternative, if not.
Yes.
Well, the great advantage is people come in through the door and not through the main thing for the police drop.
Because the door's open, they often look and approach.
Councillor Breen?
As part of that, I've just got a concern that if it's used 7 days a week by a commercial business, it should be subject to commercial rates, commercial council tax or whatever. And I wouldn't want us to be left liable for that. So as part of the process, can you just please double check that they're not getting premises on the cheap and avoiding
That is a specific question I asked when I first heard about this, and I was assured that it wasn't an issue, but I think it needs to be
Right.
properly recorded through the STBF.
We need to clarify it
Yeah.
with Dover District Council at the earliest opportunity.
Councillor Wiles.
I mean, if it is 11,700, I think that's a pretty good commercial return for a
Yes.
space of that size in this town.
So I think we should start on the positive.
But going back 2-3 years, you have to remember that space was occupied by a commercial outfit. I can't remember what rate they were paying, but we've lost that income since they
Yes.
vacated,
Yeah.
and this building is often empty. I'm sure we can accommodate
Yes.
meetings within
Yeah.
the building.
And what about the room on the other side of the archway? Isn't there a room on the other side of
That's
the
the
archway?
That's the
That's
argument.
The one issue for me, I think, is around my position around disability access, because we actually made that decision as a positive step in terms of heritage and townscape.
Can I
The galleries.
just say that I think on one of the action logs we've looked at today, there is still this outstanding discussion of space within the Guildhall.
There is.
And, I mean, there is a space, which I'm not clear what the position is at the moment, but which the museum coordinator, I know, would like as a permanent space for temporary exhibitions, which is at the front of the Guildhall.
I think that goes back into, it's not, certainly not an STBF finance discussion. I think that you are right, and the previous decision was that that space was given for temporary exhibitions for 6 months. And that 6 months isn't very far away in terms of ending. It doesn't really help the museum in terms of future planning in any case. So it does sit on an action log somewhere and needs to be revisited. And it might be STC, but I could be wrong on that point. Okay, so
It was
I
on
don't.
an action log we looked at the previous meeting, so it must be
It
on
must be on
the
FNGP. Okay.
A number of questions then, let's just vote on
Yeah.
it.
Happy to receive reports on
Until
the
we
basis
vote.
there are a number of questions that need to be taken to STBF for feedback. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Councillor Carter's proposed, Councillor Black has seconded, and we have all accepted that. Okay, item 7. In the absence of the town clerk, I think we can still deal with this one. So we have a report from the town clerk on displaying of banners from the balcony of the Guildhall, seeking approval to 2 requests that have been received. I was going to pass it up to the town clerk at the stage, but before we talk about this, I want to receive, as chair of this meeting, I received an email that was sent from Councillor Marie to the town clerk, and I didn't want to leave this, I did want to do, share it with this committee, because I was very surprised at the tone and content of it, and I think it's important that as chair, and in some ways it actually makes suggestions about me as chair in this process, I want to read it out, because it's not a confidential item, and I am chair of this meeting. So I'll read it out verbatim. As we have discussed before, I find it offensive that after 15 years of helping running the lights, which has taken place in town over 40 years, we now have to ask permission from council to hang a banner. But yet, STC can hang one wherever they please. This is bureaucracy gone mad within STC. I'd like to just say this is from a fellow councillor. Or ego boosting by certain councillors who love posting up to 10 times a day on social media, saying that they have allowed this to go ahead.
Who's that one?
We don't even ask any staff to help, as they are busy enough as we do it ourselves safety. We are running out of time to promote the lights event, but yet STC are dragging their heels as normal. So what I wanted to do was correct the suggestion that the decision to bring this request to this committee was anything to do with me as chair. It was not. My understanding is that this requirement is a standing requirement, and I will ask for the mayor maybe to comment on that, which was set well ahead of these specific requests being received. Second point I wanted to make is that the tone and content of this email falls below a standard I would expect any councillor to write to an officer, and also to include certain factually incorrect statements towards a fellow councillor. So, can I ask the Mayor first of all, because this was originally destined towards FNGP, but it was realised it was actually Guildhall, therefore it was STBF. So I had to accept it as chair, which I was willing to do so. So I'd like you to make comments, Paul.
Yeah, so I believe as far back as when I used to be chair of the Christmas lights, I used to write to Sandwich Town Council to put the banners on the balconies in that time. And I'm talking about, that must be, when did we do that? Early 2000s, was it? Yeah, early 2000s, so probably even up to about 20 years ago we used to do that. And it was a case that any organisation, Age Concern or anybody else would have to request to put a banner up, and I think that's quite an acceptable process, because for instance, with all due respect, I won't make any names, but a political party could want to put a banner up on our balcony and put out a political message, and of course if we just let them go ahead with that, that would not be the correct thing for this council to do. So I believe the process to be sound, I believe it's well established, and I believe that there should be no recrimination for asking the details of the banner and the organisation that are putting that up, and for it to be voted on by a committee.
Thank you. Councillor Wells?
Did that email come from a councillor?
Yes, Councillor Reid.
Okay. That's clearly not acceptable. I think, I mean, clearly, if the process is you have to get permission from this committee or from the Tollbridge Fund to put banners up, then you need to start the planning much earlier. My view would be that this is something that should be delegated to the town clerk. You know, we have all these signs around the forecourt about pigeons and ball games which have been put up without our knowledge or consent. We have the sandwich and blue wheelbarrows which have been put up there without our knowledge or consent. Why can't the town clerk make the decision rather than involving us? I mean, she's employed to do this kind of thing.
So I think that is, and that's why I was surprised it came to us, but based on the history of these, and that's how it was deemed to come here, I think we can come back to that in a second. But Councillor Pennington?
Thank you. Yes, I agree 100% that if someone wants to hang a banner on this building, then it should be done with the proper authorisation, and it shouldn't be open to any organisation to do so without proper permission.
Yeah.
How we organise that permission internally is our affair. I'd be open to the suggestion that the town clerk is given that responsibility. But I agree with what's been said about the wording of that email, which, in my view, from a councillor, is just not acceptable.
Thank you. So, what I would, sorry, Councillor Black.
Yeah, one is delegated to the property manager. The town clerk
Yes.
will not of the nitty gritty. This sounds like a property manager, but I agree with everything that's been said so far. The term is just not off.
Okay, so, sorry, Councillor.
Me too. What Councillor Pennington has said, and Councillor Carter and Councillor Clark.
So first of all, we're asked to agree to both requests. So for these, we'll deal with these in this committee. And actually the timing, I don't think actually cuts across any ability in terms of the suggestion that this is bureaucracy gone mad, etc. There is an opportunity ahead of both of these events to get a decision from the council, which will happen now, that allows them to put the banners up if we vote in that way. But then the second thing is a new proposal. If Councillor Carter's happy to support it from a mayor's perspective, then we delegate this down to the property manager to do this from now on. So on number one, are we happy to accept both banners to be displayed?
Indeed, that's correct.
Who would like to
I propose that.
Councillor,
And they can go up tomorrow.
they can go up tomorrow if they want. Yeah. Yeah, unanimous. And then the second one is a proposal that we move this responsibility down to the property manager for future requests.
I'll propose
And
that.
could I
Councillor Black?
suggest and or the town clerk in case
And
one or the
or.
other is not
Good point.
available?
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
I'll second that.
Councillor, yeah. All voted.
Could I mention also that this organisation has previous record of not applying for things in due time?
I mean, association with reindeer is a Grinch.
Okay, now moving on to the meaty bit of the agenda, item 8. Draft budgets for both the Sandwich Tilbridge Fund and also the STBF Guildhall to consider before they're presented to the trustee. These are at attachment 5. So, rather than the town clerk being able to take us through the main points, I wonder if Karen's got any observations that she'd like to raise before we have a discussion. What I wanted to do was record my thanks as chair to Karen for the stewardship around the budget for this year. And whilst you might drill down and find significant variances in various pockets within it, the actual budget is coming really close if it hits its estimated outturn. So I'd like to thank you for the stewardship in terms of the overall budget for the STBF for this year. Okay. Have you got any points you'd like to share with us before we discuss any points?
Not really. I mean, the main points I have written in my report, I can sort of pick out things. Salaries budget has increased slightly. Grants budget I have stripped out pending a discussion.
Yeah.
Because obviously the property manager has not been here long. He is hoping to be able to do repairs to various properties, and so pending those decisions, you know, I didn't want to just preclude that from happening by sticking in a large grants budget. I think it all needs to be discussed together. So yeah, I've added in the request for a cinema feasibility study.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to point out that any income that we get from the Guildhall car park will relate to the previous year. So the budget for the 2025-26 will be income relating, will be income we receive in the following year, not 25-26.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Yes.
Yeah, you can take it from there if you want to
Okay.
have anything
So,
else.
yeah, I just wanted to, so we're going to open up the conversation. But I just wanted to say that each year we do continue to reduce the capital reserve of the fund. Transfer reserves for 25-26, the proposal is 59,410, and that assumes a zero figure, as you just said, Karen, in terms of grants. For the past 3 years, I know Councillor Miles has got a much longer list than I have because he showed it earlier. But for the past 3 years, performance of the investments has delivered 36,000 for 22-23, with a drawdown of 82,000. For 23-24, we've had a return on investment of 41,000 from the fund, with a drawdown of 77k. And for this year, we've got an estimate of 48k being a return through the investments, with an estimated drawdown of 58k. What also you have to factor in is the average inflation rate over the last 3 years, and longer obviously. So that was 9% in 22, 7.3 in 23, and expected to be 2.5 for this year. Rounding that all up, we have a diminishing fund that probably on current projections, particularly if we continue with the level of funds that have been awarded in the past, that may only last 15 more years unless we actually look to do something significant about how we manage the fund. I just wanted to set that scene around the easy thing to say, well, actually, we'll just continue on doing what we've done in the past. So I'll pause there and open up for comments. Councillor Miles.
Yeah, on the car park, Karen, could you remind us what capital receipt we got for that car park?
About
sale?
33,000 relating to 23-24.
Is there a follow-up question to that?
It's history. No, it's just history.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I do remember Councillor Wild would occasionally say, either in the context of this committee or somewhere else, that we should and could employ on a contractual basis somebody to look at the running costs of the Guildhall particularly. Somebody who you've encountered, I think, in an interview process, who had ideas about how we might reduce the cost of utilities in this building.
Utilities. No.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was the gentleman, David, what his surname is.
That's
correct.
Yeah, someone we interviewed for the property manager
Yeah, property manager.
had ideas. We were talking about employing him on a property asset by asset basis. but
Improve the efficiency.
I don't think that progressed. That was with the town clerk. I believe.
Okay, and it couldn't, would it be worth trying to make?
I think it's worth looking at, but
Yeah.
I mean, we got a better deal on utilities already
Okay.
in the current
Yes, we
year.
did, yeah. Very true.
But certainly his ideas were more around providers, suppliers,
Yes.
movement sensors,
Yes.
lighting
Yes, that sort
systems,
of thing.
etc. Heating systems.
But there's nothing in the budget for those
No.
sorts of positions.
And actually, that's a very good point, Councillor Anderson, because this gentleman that we spoke to was talking about things like lighting.
Yes.
And if everybody remembers, we gave the Sir Roger Manwood's £7,000, and that has dramatically reduced their electricity bill at Sir Roger Manwood's. I met with the head from the school, and he said that change of lighting has had a dramatic effect on their utilities.
They should repay the grant in that case.
Yes, we should.
Would you like to tell?
Yes, but I mean,
It is a good point.
that is something.
Very
that
valid
we
point.
should
So,
think about.
is there a proposal there to ask Karen to look at building in an element that allows a survey to be taken of?
I think,
The property manager.
Isn't this really straight in the remit of the property
Could well
manager?
be.
Yeah.
By all means, in part of his objectives, yes, but I'm not sure we want to bring somebody else in addition.
No.
Because it is early days for the property manager, he seems to have got a good grasp on
I
some
think
of the issues.
I think the property manager, I'm not sure if it's in here, should just have a budget for that kind of
yeah.
commissioning of surveys.
Oh, there is,
on the assets generally.
not the Guildhall, but there is a property asset management budget, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
for
Yes, there is.
10,000.
that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But that's not for the Guildhall, that's for other buildings.
Mhm.
But if the property manager suggested that we change over to, I don't know what kind of lighting
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
be, there would be a capital cost involved in that
Yes.
There would be.
change
There
over.
would be, but
So we
but
have
you
to-
would recoup after a couple of years. You would recoup that capital
Yes,
cost. So
but, well, I hope so, but there would nevertheless have to be a budget for it.
indeed,
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine Julian has that expertise himself without having to
So,
commission a study.
there's an action between this meeting and the next meeting to ask whether this is an area that Julian has the capacity to do, and is there a budget that he would need to support him in doing it. And this is very much about scoping out a piece of work for the Guildhall in terms of looking at energy efficiency in terms of the current facilities versus where we could move to.
could I just add, because obviously I was at the interviews as well, that the gentleman we were talking to was quite happy to come in on a contract basis, and as long as we set out our criteria correctly for what we want him to do, it could be quite cost effective, few £100 to get him to undertake this, because from interviewing the current property manager, Julian, I didn't actually see that in his CV or as his skills. The gentleman we spoke to, called David, he had particular skills where he's worked at Pfizer's and other large organisations, and he knows the exact calculations and
The longer term, there would be nil cost because the savings would cover the fee.
There has to be something in the budget.
So I think it's definitely for Julian to scope out how that might be addressed. So if we could take that, but could that be fed back to him as quickly as possible to need some time to give some thought to it? More comments?
What's the thoughts about giving grants and donations?
I was holding that one back. You will come to this. It's a very important point. Councillor Black.
Well, of course, to a certain extent, we've said at the moment that's a zero in the budget, but of course we've taken 6,000 in addition for the cinema. So we've possibly got even less scope than we might have originally. I'm not objecting to the cinema one, let me stress that, but it's made it even tighter.
So, as you picked up on the cinema, I need to ask Councillor Wiles how he's linked into Julian on this, because it's out with sort of Julian's work that he's doing at the moment, and has he said this is exactly the right way to go with this? Because when you look at the Empire Cinema in terms of what needs to be spent on it from a council perspective, and we've had a damp-proof report recently produced, there is significant work that we can already get on with ahead of getting other reports undertaken. There's actual work that needs to be done in the next year, which will cost a significant amount of money, I think. So it's how what you've proposed, Colin, in relation to what Julian is already doing around the cinema.
Yeah, the feasibility. I mean, clearly the cinema. We've now had 2 reports from independent contractors, dampness and property reports, both of which raise issues which have to be addressed, some long term, some short term. My idea with the feasibility study is really getting the longer term proposal, so employing an architect to do feasibility studies on how it might be renovated, looking at funding options and all that kind of thing. So it was really just a finger in the air sum, just to say that we've got the budget there if we need to employ someone. But I'd need to have more detailed discussions with Julian in order to progress.
So I'm assuming you're going to come to the full STBF at some point with a detailed report on what it is we would get for our money. My issue, I suppose, is it's almost like that's running ahead of what we know is some significant problems just to make it keep standing, I suppose, at the moment.
The cinema is, things are there are to some extent coming to a head. We know there's public concern about it, the dampness, the smell. We need to do something. We have to engage with the lessee as well in order to push that forward.
Those numbers that you give and just sort of confirm the fears that I've had ever since I joined this council. We've been spending money on grants without really looking at the wider picture of the consequences, and I do think the time may have come when we have to suspend the grants programme from STBF. I don't know if there'd be other means of financing it, but I really think we need to get the situation under control before we go any further.
And I think it was the entry point, and Councillor Green already raised it. I think we should have a conversation about the grants and develop a proposal we take to the full STBF, because some of the councillors on the full STBF will have their interests from a different perspective, whereas not part of this group. So we need to be very clear about what we're going to propose, because I'm very much personally aligned with Councillor Pennington about this. I don't know how we can make grants on a pot of money that we don't have available, but that's my individual view. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, so my sort of view on this is these assets have been neglected a long time.
Yeah.
I've attended the Empire Cinema for the Friends Evening and seen the state of it. I mean, when you go in as a cinema user, I think you go in and you're a little bit in a cloud of cotton wool because you're watching a film and you're whatever like that. But going in on the evening of the Friends first committee sort of set up, I think that was very useful because you went in without that expectation of seeing a film or enjoying yourself and having a look around. I think as being landlords, it's quite scary that building has been severely neglected for so long, and that nothing's been done about it. There's members of the public going in there, and although it may be transitorily safe, I think we should have many years ago been doing what Councillor Wiles has instigated now to make sure the whole place is as it is. And I think I would join Councillor Pennington on the same thing. I think we need to get our house in order first before we start helping other people. And
I think, sorry, Councillor, to come in. I don't think it's about an either or, because actually we have a responsibility as trustee.
exactly.
And I'll just read to you one sentence, or one part of one sentence from the statement of purpose. So the charity shall first defray out of the income of the charity the cost of maintaining the property of the charity, including, in brackets, the repair and insurance of any buildings. So that's the main priority for this charity.
Exactly.
And the decisions on those assets were taken well before many of us actually arrived here. So that's our responsibility in terms of being the trustee.
It is. Yeah. I think that's been overlooked for too many years. So, and that blind eye has been turned to these assets. But similarly, the Fitness Connection or St Peter's Day Centre, similar thing there. I mean, and I for one would put my hand up and say guilty. I'm guilty. It's been known that has had like leaking roofs and things like that, and really they should have been addressed. And if it affects the public's health or well-being, then it should have priority over any other grants or whatever process, I think. So.
And that's a good point regards St Peter's, because actually whilst Councillor Wiles have been on the front foot in terms of the cinema, but it is about its future, what we haven't got built in here is an explicit support cost for St Peter's, which has got as significant an issue in terms
just
of...
as significant, I would say.
So I'm just wondering whether we need to have an additional amount in for St Peter's, because whilst there might be 10,000 there for the property manager to manage the assets, 10,000 across the assets will not touch the sides of St Peter's in terms of its specific needs. So I'd like to propose we actually do build in an amount for St Peter's, or somehow we build in an amount that reflects the challenge that the property manager has got this year.
Definitely.
For me, we need to look at the core properties. What are strategically the properties within our portfolio that we need to keep? And I think looking around, I think there are properties in the portfolio which are commercial businesses or offices or whatever, which Sunbridge Town Council do not need to keep. They're not specifically unique. We can't own every property in the town, and we should have a clear disposal strategy to give ourselves the funds so that we're not sticking plasters on roofs, but we're doing repairs and maintenance that are going to, and refurbishments that are going to stand the test of time over the next 50 years.
Indeed, that's true.
So I take a slightly different view on that, because property is more valuable than anything. Land and property, maybe art or wine, is more goes up in value. I lived in Cambridge for 30 years and was involved with some of the colleges through my housing association. The Oxbridge colleges do not sell property. They take a 500-year view of their assets. They don't take a short-term view. So even if they own the freehold of an asset, they would not sell the freehold. They might lease it on a long lease, but they take a much longer view. And I think it's a mistake to sell assets unless you have a proper asset management strategy. So you have a strategy where you say, we have these assets, does this asset have a community value, in which case we can look at it for the benefit of the community. If it's purely a commercial asset, like St Peter's or the drill hall, we should say either we get the best possible return, or you might decide you want to sell that and invest in a different asset, which perhaps has a community benefit or a better commercial return. But you need a strategy.
But I can't accept that comparing Sandwich with Cambridge universities is a fair comparison.
Well,
Cambridge University is absolutely flushed with cash and have huge stipends and huge investments.
I'm talking about the college.
Billions.
The colleges.
We are a £600,000 a year business, not a £600 million or whatever Cambridge.
Sorry,
University.
Peter, there are 33 colleges in Cambridge. The university is a separate piece. Some of the colleges are not by any means rich, but they still take a long-term view.
So I think from a STBF perspective, but also it's just as applicable to STC, we're not in the business to actually own and run assets. There are opportunities and needs to pick up some assets, particularly from a community need. That's the nature of the local parish council. We just have in some respects, a luxury of money comparatively with other parish councils, and that's why we are where we are. But we really are, the university analogy I don't think is right, Colin, because actually they're there to support themselves as businesses in terms of income and expenditure, where we've gathered these assets for multiple reasons and probably not the right reasons, and we should try and at best see how we manage them down over time.
But I think it's a mistake to sell off assets to fund revenue, always. I think part of the problem here is we've got
the wrong assets.
We haven't made enough of this. We've had 30 years of bad management, maladministration almost, where assets have been neglected, they haven't been reviewed, they haven't been repaired, and we're having to pick up the pieces of this. Appointing the property manager was a start with that, but we do need a proper strategy where we say, what's the value or the purpose of this asset?
Just very briefly, let's pat ourselves on the backs. What you're talking about is history. Just recently we inherited a property that we assessed for quite some time, 18 months, 2 years. We did a thorough assessment, we were transparent on it. We deemed that there was no benefit to it for what it was designated, and we took the action. So I think for Councillor Breen and Councillor Wiles's arguments, I think this council is operating efficiently now.
Yeah. Okay, so can I just, because we've had a lot of general discussion, have we got any specific points? I've got just a couple in terms of the presentation of the budget itself.
Well, I think when it goes forward to full council, we ought to be absolutely clear, and I think maybe you might want to take a vote whether we're going to have a moratorium or a gap in actually granting funds so that we can replenish the war chest of the toll bridge fund, and
so that will be a proposal we'll take in a minute. I just had two specific comments, Karen, in terms of the draft budget. I just wanted to ask about, so bear with me if I can find my notes. One was that we've reduced, and it's good that we have the drawdown from 77 to 59, which is great, but I didn't understand the rationale for doing that when we know precariously across the whole piece financially we're not in a good place. It's just understanding that. The second thing was, I'm aware that we may be taking some security costs for the Guildhall in terms of managing some of the out of hours areas, subject to agreement by the trustee. Has that been factored in at all as a cost?
No, I'll answer that point first.
Yeah.
That hasn't been factored in, but we are a member of staff short.
Yeah.
And we will be utilising that underspend, and that underspend hasn't been featured in the
No.
budget.
So I think for
I
the
wasn't
next,
expecting
yeah,
it.
the next,
So we do have
yeah,
scope.
I assume it's coming to STBF, which is in December. Sorry, have you got STBF this month, or is it the full STBF?
Yeah, I believe there is.
Next week.
I assume we're taking a paper on that proposal around security costs. So can it then feature in this budgeting for next time that we meet? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the more general question about why we've reduced the drawdown.
The plan has been over the last few years to reduce that drawdown.
Okay.
And I'm demonstrating that this is what I'm attempting to do. But when I set this budget, it's not set fast like the town council budget is. We're not set to a precept. We can at any point take a report to the trustee and say we desperately need this money to repair this building.
Yeah.
Can we draw down? So this is just a.
So I think that highlights the need probably to take the first vote, which is proposing that we don't. That our view as well, the proposal is that the view of this committee is that we do not invest money in grants for the next, certainly for the next 12 months. To somebody used some very good words around putting the assets at the top of our priority and focusing on those. So if we can take is anybody happy to propose?
Yes, I was happy to propose that so that we take a
0.
Yeah.
Second, Councillor Pennington, and a vote.
There'll be a lot of flack.
There will be a huge row.
Yeah.
And a terrific amount of pressure to get the Alex
Yeah.
Trust.
And yeah, that is a separate conversation, of course, isn't it? And the thing is, we are a finance committee and we're focusing on the finances, so it is only right and prudent.
But I just wanted to say that in our defence, what we need to tell the public is for the last 20, 30 years, we haven't actually been actioning the right things. So we've been rather generous with this money. It's not our money, it's public money, but so are the assets of public property, and we haven't been looking after them. And if anything,
Be careful though, because that could backfire on people, especially longer serving one, inevitably. But it is a huge problem. We've known, since we've become councillors, we've known about the issue. I don't think the general public has much of a clue.
no, they haven't.
And that's going to be a very, very difficult message to handle.
You're right.
So,
Except that the general public does use the cinema and go to the
we
gym.
do, and that's the point.
Yes, but the more vocal groups are particularly the groups who have received grants in the past, or the hoo-ha we've had over the past 18 months, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we'll continue with the scope of the draft letters coming in.
Yeah, I mean that. I think it should also spur us to look at new models for fundraising. To say that, to say simply that's the end of the grants is not a fair reflection. I think it's incumbent on us to think about other ways of generating funds to support community activities in the town.
I agree. And we have, as I understand it, nobody's ever really applied for grants or had responsibility to do that. And there are some, there's an organisation called Funding for All, which is supported by Kent Community Foundation, which is extraordinarily helpful in terms of advertising what grants are available and so on.
And I just want to say I met an ex-DDC colleague only literally 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he said he is now chair of a trust fund, and he said they struggle to get people to apply
Really?
for the
Would
money.
you give me
Yep.
a name?
I will do afterwards. Actually, I've got the details at home. I'll send them through to you, Claire. But I only met him, well, probably actually only a couple of weeks ago.
So much I love being all your company. I think let's move on because it's getting to
Indeed.
9:30 now.
So,
So, and the second proposal is that we accept
That's right.
Well, there's going to be some further work done by Karen in time for the next meeting that we come together, and I think we've captured everything that everybody wants to feed in at this point, Karen.
But,
Okay.
yeah, in its entirety,
Yeah.
propose that goes ahead.
Councillor Pennington, seconds, votes. Thank you very much. Right, item number 9, we have a report from the Town Clerk again seeking support from the committee for Councillor Tom Lenz to replace Councillor Franklin as a member of the committee. This should be a quick one, I hope. Anybody happy to propose that? Councillor Carter,
Happy to propose Councillor Tom Lenz.
A bit
Right,
late.
Gary.
Before she changes her mind.
Right.
Quick.
You're happy.
It's a compliment for this one.
Okay. And then you'll be glad to know the final item is item 10, which was a recap of the adopted toll bridge fund policy. I asked this to be on the agenda. This was really about to say that actually, when we are able to award grants, we actually have to have a communication outwards of the process to make sure people know. We need to have it open, an open door from a certain period, which is in January to the end of March. I would suggest that we receive the report today, but we don't do anything until the next meeting, once we are clear about grants. But I've got Councillor Anderson wanting to say something, that's fine.
I looked at the list of legislation, which is something
Oh,
that
yes.
I've in the past, and I understood that it was being consulted about, but I can't see reference to the Equality Act.
So there's an action there to that effect, because the Town Clerk agreed to take away
Yes,
the...
well, clearly it's been looked at, because there is some much more up-to-date legislation listed here, like the working together to safeguard children, which must be a policy, not a piece of legislation, which is dated 2023, but the Equality Act should receive.
Honourable
I'm
Edwards,
sorry.
sorry, I'm trying to come across there, Claire.
Okay,
The Equality Act 2010.
I take it back,
I'm not in order.
I should shut up.
I'll just check
It's
what
too easy
the
to spot.
proposal was. So, the original recommendation was that the committee agree arrangements for communicating and promoting the newly adopted process, policy and criteria, including how future applications might be invited. I was asked that we defer that to our next meeting if people are happy to do that. Could somebody propose we defer
Yeah,
it?
that's
Sorry, have we got applications in the pipeline?
I'm not sure there's any
I didn't think we did have that.
formal applications.
We have to communicate that sensitively and carefully.
Karen, were you going to say
We
something?
have got a couple of people that are waiting for
Waiting.
answers.
Answers about
Yeah.
the process.
Yeah.
About the process,
Yeah.
but not
And
actual,
they
not
are
actual
aware that there
applications.
are funds left from this financial year that
Are very small.
could be available,
Yeah.
yes, so
I-
they're waiting for an answer.
So my personal view is we adopted the new policy, process, criteria and application in September. At that point, we moved across to, we adopted it then, it wasn't at a point in the
No.
future.
No.
We'd already invited applications for this year, and those that were in time were looked at. There are late applications, possibly, or applications that didn't hit the invite deadline. I don't see, it's my personal view, that we would want to go back and we've adopted the new process, which opens its door in January. But that's my personal view. For the town clerk to decide whether it needs to come to the next meeting.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, so that's final one. So, did we just vote on that? Will
No.
we defer it? So, I'd like to propose we defer it.
Second
Councillor
that.
second, Councillor Hunter second, and unanimous. Yeah. Okay, so that's all of tonight's business. I'm trying to find my first page agenda in terms of the date of the next meeting.
Dated next meeting, 18th.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes, so we are next going to meet on Wednesday, 18th of December, and again we'll be following the F&G committee meeting, and it will be in the council chamber. Thank you very much.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
Coming for the next one.
Controversial subjects.